I am Jay Horton. I make movies that make money sometimes, and I'm starting to do interviews again. Today, I am here with filmmaker Chase Dudley, who's probably best known for Lockdown, for Broken Innocence, and the upcoming Blood on the Bleachers. How you doing, Chase?
Hey, what's going on, Jason? Thank you for having me again.
It's good, man. I was been thinking about doing filmmaker interviews again, and you were just one of the first people I thought of. I've sat here and watched your like growth over the last like 4 years. And it's pretty impressive, like in quality of work and in the amounts of money you're able to raise, and the cast and crew you're able to put together. It's pretty cool, man.
Thank you very much, man. Watching a lot of videos that you put on YouTube and taking pen to paper, and definitely elaborating with Abel Berry on how to implement perks into our script to continue to fundraise and elevate our production value. And I would have never thought from the last time we talked, was it 3 years ago? Yeah, it was like,
Probably, yeah,
yes,
at least.
it was a lot. It was a while ago because Locked In wasn't even released yet. I would have never thought that I would be making movies with six figures. And I remember we were talking about just the hustle and the journey, and then watching you put together projects like Craven, which was a very good movie, and just seeing what you have done with A Hard Place. I'm like really in awe of what you have done yourself. So thank you for having me on.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate that. One thing that always kind of struck me about you, especially over the last couple of years, is how generous and gracious you are. If
Thank you.
if you feel like someone helped you, you definitely shout it out, and you're inspiring others. So I think it's really cool, man. So the first thing that I like to ask people now, and I want to try to get rid of the platitude, like kind of bullshitty like filmmaker response, which is typically you ask this
Yes.
question and they all, well, I make films because I want to express my blah 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 blah. So like the question is really simple. Why do you make films?
Man, wow. I never been asked why. I love the passion. I just feel like it's a calling. It's when I'm working on a particular project, it's been a calling that's been calling me, and it's I really can't even put into words why I do what I do. I really don't know.
Well,
It's
what this is what I think, and and maybe this is a more pragmatic view on it, but I feel like almost everyone that goes into the arts, whether it's acting or musician or it's like filmmaker, like in the visual arts,
Mhm.
that somewhere down deep, whether we want to admit it or not, like there is a need for like for an external validation of something that we're creating. Like I'm creating this thing, and somewhere down deep I want someone somewhere to look at that thing and go, I like this, and that feels good. There's that
Yes.
almost like I don't think anybody said I'm going to be a director and that didn't cross their mind to do an award speech or something like that.
That is a very fact, and I think you actually simplified what I was saying. Yes, because Broken Innocence did come from a core experience that I had as a kid of my best friend at the time. She was being sexually abused by her father, and
Mm.
she did not know how to tell me. I had to read her obituary, and someone pulled me aside and let me know that was what she was going through before she ended her life. And
Mhm.
that was something that always stuck with me because I think she was trying to tell me, but she was a few years ahead of me, and I don't even think I was even thinking of I was like 11 years old. I was thinking video games, Sega, and you know what I mean. So I think the hints that she was trying to tell me, it went way over my head, and I had no. I had really, as a kid, no desire to be a director. I wanted to be a famous actor, like, because that's what you saw. That was what the sizzle. of Hollywood sold to me. I was like, I want to be a famous actor, and I'm going to be a leading man. I'm a handsome guy. I got it all. And then my early 20s, I could not figure out how to get in. And when I had this camcorder, obviously I cannot act in front of this camcorder. I didn't have no accessories to set this stuff up, so I was always behind the camera. And the universe had other plans for me. I was molding me into becoming a director. And then once I did started acting in my own films, I realized I was very terrible at it.
Yeah, self-realization's important, right?
It
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah.
It's like you have to be one or the other. And Payday was that realization. Payday, I was going to play Darnell, and it was the very first film that we've landed an investor for, and we had a very tight window. It was a
Right.
very small budget of 15,000,
Mm.
but that 15,000 was something I've never worked with at that time in 2016. And so I have like that investor was very observant. So I had very little prepared to, get the shot list, the storyboards for the movie, and I haven't even studied my lines for Payday. So I I literally told Sam a month before, I'm like, I can't do both.
Right.
She's like, what? And I'm like, I gotta figure out which one I'm gonna be. And I'm like, I'm definitely not handing this off to somebody else to direct. So I'm going to just step down as an actor and focus on directing. And that was the best decision, Jason, I could have ever done. Because I feel that Payday was the first film out of the 3 films that I shot where it really showed that if I'm acting in my film, which some people can do,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like on the indie level, you're already wearing multiple hats, so you just really, really taking a big risk. And I think that really highlighted my movie because even still to this day, there's a lot of I really like Payday. Like a lot of people tell me, that's still one of my most popular, best performing movies.
That's really cool. It's cool, man. So one thing you've done quite a bit is you kind of hop genres. Like you don't like kind of stick in one thing. You do different things. So like you did, kind of a horror-ish thing. You did like with Broken Innocence. I guess we would call it thriller, like a
Yeah, thriller drama.
drama thriller. And then kind of slasher with Blood on the Bleachers, and then
Yes,
the new one you're doing kind of like straight up like kind of action
thriller.
drama. Thriller?
Yeah,
Okay.
action. Yeah.
Cool. So, like, is there like an overall plan, or do you just like this is what excites me right now? This is what I'm doing.
I mean, honestly, I love all forms of cinema. I love foreign films. I love films with subtitles. I love different types of films. And my favorite director is Steven Spielberg. And I really like that he is very versatile in different genres. I love different types of movies, but I don't want to be molded in one particular genre. I really want to explore and like you said, and I've learned this from you. This is what really made me start thinking about what type of movies I'm going to plan, is making movies that make money. And I used to write against the current of, well, everybody's doing a zombie movie, so I'm going to do this because it's completely different. And you made a good point about movies that are in season right now, and action thrillers are really hot. I just did Blood in the Bleachers, which is a slasher, and the '90s inspired slasher is really back in style. So I try to make movies that not only excite me but also have the best chance of earning.
Right. Yeah, that's smart. That's smart. So, one of the hardest things for a filmmaker is probably finding an audience. Like, how did you go, you know, from making movies to actually getting people to watch and support them?
Man, that's a really good question. I really felt that Payday was the very first movie that really had anticipation of people wanting to see it without me feeling like I'm like hounding people down their throat to want to watch it. And then I did Beast of the Field, and it really didn't have an audience. And so and then COVID happened, and I really started to watch your YouTube channels,
Hmm.
and then I really started to really like, why am I not connecting? I felt like I was not going anywhere. So I started watching a lot of filmmakers. You and Indie Film Hustle and Film Carriage were the 3 most popular choices that I consumed,
Hmm.
and y'all all 3 had a common thing of about making movies that somebody want to watch. So that's where I kind of had to learn to really start trying to target my audience and kind of think more strategically of what movie I'm making and why am I making it and who is it supposed to be for versus making this and hoping that it sticks.
Mm, yeah, that's a good point. So let's just get in. We'll talk about crowdfunding a little bit. So I'm going to assume it wasn't always your go-to thing, like
Yeah.
crowdfunding. So what made you decide to take a leap into crowdfunding, and what was that first experience like?
Well, I'm going to tell you a true story. I did one crowdfunding before, and I tried to do one for Marvelous Mandy, and it failed very, very terribly. And the only reason why I mention it is because when I reached out to Abel, he found it, and that was a secret that I never wanted public. I
Right.
felt so hard. I was like, I'm never going to fail publicly and humiliated like that ever again because it was bad. And so many people do fail Indiegogos because it really is strategic plan. And when I seen, after I shot Locked In, I had so many issues with that film, and you were, really busy. Like I was trying to ask for help, and it was like I've really learned a very valuable, tough lesson. I need to quit trying to make these films that I expect is going to make all of this money, and is again part of your amazing speech. And when I seen what you did with Craven, I was like, teach me how. Because I was struggling. I was getting so many doors closed in my face, and you were just thriving with Craven, and you just made it look so cool. I was watching your promo videos. I was watching your everything come together, and I was like, well, what is he doing? Like, so I messaged you, hey Jason, how did you do that? And then you were like, hey man, I used Ableberry, and then I was watching you talk about how you didn't feel like you needed a crowdfunding, and I remember you posted asking like opinions about crowdfunding, and I said several years ago, I was like, crowdfunding stink.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there was a science to it, and that's my ignorance as a creator.
Yeah.
I'm thinking creatively and I'm not thinking business. And that's the biggest thing I can think Abel is, and y'all two started making me help realize that there is a big business to filmmaking rather than creative. And I'm glad that you guys have been my biggest mentors in filmmaking, and I have learned that has changed me so much. And I wish that people really get out of their bubble and realize that if you pay attention to people who are teaching, like you are giving valuable information, and it's there to take. And I don't mean to stretch out the answer, but I called Abel. You gave me Abel's information, and you warned me. You were like, well, he said he's not doing crowdfunding no more. He denied me 3 times. I would not take no for an answer. I'm like, Abel, give me one chance. Please let me be that person that changes your mind about filmmakers. And he gave me a chance, and we made about 57,000 on our first campaign, and then Blood on the Bleachers we made over 110,000, and now on our current campaign we are almost at 114,000.
Jesus, that's really cool. You brought up a thing. Of course, I like talking about myself. So you had mentioned how I didn't think I needed a crowdfunding consultant, and I think it's an important lesson because, like, I am somebody at that point. I was running a YouTube channel on distribution and marketing. I know marketing. I know, you know what I mean? So, but I still was like, I don't need this, and it's important, I think, for us to realize that we can always use advice, from someone more experienced in, a particular arena. And, I basically, I swallowed my pride a little bit, and I was like, well, I'm going to hear the guy out and, listen to him. And I was like, you know what? I think this does make sense. So I did it once. And then at the end of that, I was kind of like, I don't really need it on the second one. But, we got to talking, and I was like, you know what? I think there's some value here. So we did it again and, raised more money. So, you know what I mean? It just goes to show you that we should always be open to new experiences.
Oh, absolutely. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have really started thinking about marketing and making sure on set that I hire on-set photographer to record and get all of this promotional material, because I used to promote the same image over and over again.
And I think we all did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you were, and I remember you kept it real with me, which is why I really value you and Abel and Aaron Carlson. You three are like the holy trinity of people that I really go to first. Of hey, give me harsh, honest feedback. Tell me how can this be better,
Right.
and then you tell me. You'll be like, your poster's too pretty.
Yeah. Oh, you know, and that's just not. That's just like I have a personal aesthetic, and you know, I like dirt. I like dirtier, grungier aesthetics. Like I
Yeah.
like tactile sense to my posters. So I do. I remember that one specifically.
No, but that's the good thing. But the reason why I mentioned that is
Yeah.
I can expect you to give me honest
Oh, totally, totally.
feedback,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's what I was more meaning by that. Is I know if I ask you a question, you're not going to sugarcoat your answer to me, and that does not help anybody if you're not being transparent or honest or helping somebody grow. And
Mm,
you need that. You
right.
need people to be honest with you, and that's why I've been married for 15 years. My wife gives me honest, harsh truths about myself that I have to grow. And it, you know, if you really want to be the very best version of yourself, you have to have discipline and you have to be self-aware of things that people are telling you.
Right. So you've been raising some serious money on Indiegogo multiple times now. You know, and you know, filmmakers always ask the same question: "What's the secret? What's your secret?" You know, is there audience building? Is it more to it? Like, is it just pure engagement? Like, is it having investors in your pocket? Like, what's the secret?
Well, the secret is honestly, I really, I mean, first and foremost, I'm going to give credit where it's due, and that's Abel. He has a really big platform, and he has his own niche. So I can't take credit there. He really keeps it fresh. He never does the same exact thing. But I think the consistency in it is fulfilling perks,
Mm,
living up to the promises, putting your content and putting your work out there in a timely manner. Like you can't like do a crowdfunding and then like 9 years your movie
yeah,
comes
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
and then you wonder, so I feel that for me, Abel gave me the platform to really, and I really wanted to prove to him that I was not going to be stubborn, and I did everything that he suggested I did, and it worked it really well.
Yeah.
But I also think building relationships is a huge play also of returning backers, because good news travel fast, but bad news travel faster.
Yeah.
So if you have a really bad reputation with crowdfundings, that is also going to be your kryptonite of, or if you don't fulfill perks, or if you screw up, because let's be honest, we miss things. I mean,
Yeah.
we're
Oh yeah.
humans. But
Totally.
you reach out to people and you keep it real and let them know, hey, I screwed up. Hey, can we do something to make it right? Hey, my next movie, I got you. There's ways to make things right versus ghosting somebody or falling off the grid.
Mm,
Just communication, man. Most people are very understanding that life happens. Most time that leaves a bad taste with people is no answer at all.
right. Yeah, I can definitely understand that. So I know a lot of filmmakers struggle with crowdfunding. What are like some common mistakes you see other filmmakers making, or that you can, in your opinion, are
Okay. Yeah, I'm
mistakes?
glad because that it is a perspective. What I see the most, honestly, is most filmmakers, most creators feel that they're too above something to do something.
Mm,
I'm not above anything. I'm here to do whatever I got to do to make a movie. I'm not afraid to ask people to donate to my campaign. I know it is essential, and I'm very excited about what I do. And I think if you are not excited or you cannot sell that enthusiasm to somebody else, what you're excited that you're doing, if I can't motivate myself, then how are you going to motivate somebody else to
mm,
donate to your campaign? And it's just some people, I hear their pitch, and it's just I'm like almost falling asleep, and it's not me trying to be rude, but you gotta really like sound like you love what you're doing.
yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have to. I mean, it's not even you can't sound like you love. You have to love what you're doing.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Yeah. So like this kind of goes back to the genre question. You know, a lot of people, you know, I've heard a couple of crowdfunding consultants talk about, you know, how, you know, like they predominantly work in horror, so they raise money in horror. Do you think like horror is uniquely suited for crowdfunding? Or I mean, you're finding great success outside of it now. I mean, Blood and Bleachers was your biggest.
I do think horror is usually horror is more forgiving, and I'm glad the horror is getting more recognition that over the years. But it does seem that most films sought out. It always seems that horror is the biggest movie, like as far as churning of what people are looking for, the next scary thing, and it's so easy to market because you don't need a celebrity, or you don't have to have a lead like Leonardo DiCaprio starring on your film. So that is the advantage of horror. But I do think when you are making movies on a consistent basis, I do think people kind of wonder, are you going to level up, or are you going to tell anything else? Or because I do think if you do get stuck in a bubble, like whether it's typecasting or, you know, the greatest directors have done different things. I think when you stagnate and your audience don't see you growing, I think they move on.
Right.
Because I'm not who I was 20 years ago. You know, like I really honestly loved Christopher Nolan in the early 2000s when he was doing, you know, Insomnia. He was doing like more different things. And his last couple films are kind of, I'm like, maybe not.
Mm.
And it's like, it's not that I don't like, he's a talented filmmaker. He's an Oscar filmmaker. I mean, I would,
Yeah.
but I just, his last couple movies have not really interested me because they've kind of been the same.
Mm. I could see that. I see that. So, a lot of filmmakers often assume that crowdfunding is just kind of free money, you know, but it's not. We're actually like doing a hustle for it, no
It's
work.
a job.
Yeah, it's definitely a job.
It is a full-time job. If you run an Indiegogo, and you know this because you raised over 100 and something, you raised 120,000 for a hard place,
Yeah, something like
and
that.
probably more because you've even did a Kickstarter. So really, in some change, that sums it up and say you did 130. You know as well as I do, it is a 40 to 60 hour week. And you might be doing more than that. That 40 to 60 hours a week is generous because the
Yeah.
reality is that there's 24 hours in a day, and you are talking to people around the world.
Yeah.
So somebody from Australia, you wake up, it's their night. So if you don't have time to commit, or a team, you're going to miss out on a lot of money because money's coming around the world. So you always have to be mobile or available. And people seem to, I mean, I'm glad that my wife is very understanding of my teenage kids, because
Mm.
we've been out and like dinner, like a really nice dinner. Hey man, you got that secret perk?
Yeah.
So if I were to turn off my phone, I can miss thousands of dollars, and you can't do that because the reality is everybody's time is different. Some people might have a certain time when it's inconvenient for you, but it's as an entrepreneur, because that's what we are. You cannot leave money off the table.
Yeah.
And so many filmmakers have too many restrictions, and guess what? Somebody else is going to get that worm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I know, especially that first weekend, especially, you know, like launch on a Friday, go through the Monday. That first weekend, I typically don't get like any sleep because
Any
I'm
sleep.
because
I
I'm
went 2 days without sleeping, and this is no joke. My wife
yeah.
had to go take me to the doctor and medicated so I can go to sleep because I was so wired. I
Oh
could
wow.
not go to sleep because I had an adrenaline. I felt like Hulk Hogan. Hulk man. I even ripped my shirt on.
Yeah, yeah. That was for this last one, right? The Desperate. Yeah, yeah.
And
So
people were like, I can't believe you did that.
yeah,
But
for anybody that doesn't know, on the Desperate, I think the first day of the campaign, you were like, were you at 50,000 or very close to 50,000 on day
yeah.
one?
Well, 46,000.
Yeah, so almost $50,000 on the first day of crowdfunding. I mean, that's huge. I mean, I remember doing a hard place, and I think we had just a little less than 20 on our first day, which is great. And I was
Yeah.
like, and I remember, you know, being like super hyped on that. And I just like, I can't even imagine doing 50 on day one, man. That's crazy, dude.
It was so unbelievable. because it really showed the excitement that we've been
Yeah.
hoping. Like again, you are excited like for a hard place, but you don't know the impact you made. No one can ever predict the impact of people excited, and I know you had longevity. Like you had like over a year put into it, and people were still excited because you put out great quality content,
Right.
and people trust Jason. Like
Hmm.
you were booking people like Glenn Plummer, which with this to look him and meet him in person, and some of the people you work with, just like even filming in the snow, man. I really admired that you shot in the snow and you shot in real snow, and just man, like you were a trooper, because dude, like I felt for you because I can just tell how cold you were.
Yeah, it was rough. I hurt my ankle a couple of days in too. I tripped on a what do you call it, a treadmill at the
Oh
Airbnb and
man,
hurt my ankle. So like I don't think it was sprained, but it was close, and I was like
yeah.
limping around for the whole thing, and I had a
Oh man.
horrible blister on one of my feet. The
Yeah, man, it was brutal, man, because it was the
yeah.
one picture like they took of you and your glasses was foggy, and I was like, oh man, somebody get this man. I felt cold for you, but you
Yeah.
got it done.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That was the toughest one. That was probably the toughest one physically I'd ever had. So what are some of the biggest challenges? Like, because it's really important in this day and age to keep our budgets like within a reasonable amount. So what are the challenges of, keeping a budget like low and reasonable and, still getting it done at a high quality?
That's a very, very good question, because the reality is, and you know this, there's never enough money,
Yeah.
and you always need more. I fortunately have three investors I can count on anytime I ever need more money. They are there as my safety net, because what you want to have on set is 10 to 20% of reserve, because you're going to have problems,
Mm.
and if you don't have an extra surgical bandage to stop the bleeding, you're going to run out of budget. And I've seen two projects last year on the Indiegogo that ran out of money.
Hmm.
Could you picture looking at a celebrity and say, hey, I can't pay you?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is, and so you really have to make sure that you are very transparent with your backers and your investors, that we have to have 10 to 20% in reserve, because there's going to be problems that is going to happen. I've dealt with every set is different. On Beast of the Field, we could not stop the rain because it was a hurricane. We shot outdoors. I thought in a great I planned this as if I thought I lived in LA.
All right.
Like, oh, we're gonna shoot in the woods. It's gonna be great. There's not gonna be no sound. It's not gonna be no people. So we're gonna shoot this great movie in the woods. And Amber Don Fox and Gregory Blair bought the hurricane with them. And oh man, I'm just so glad that they were such in a good mood, because we lost so much time. We lost natural lighting, and nobody complained. I Gregory Blair even got very sick from all of that rain. Then the hotel that we had, like we required no smoking, and this is Kentucky, and just they're crazy about tobacco, and they put him in a room where somebody smoked there, and I'm like, oh my god, he got so sick. I felt bad. I'm like, dude, please don't sue me. Please don't. But he was a trooper. Like, that's what I like working with Gregory Blair, and he wrote me two great scripts that I'm going to be shooting is The Desperate, and
Mhm.
I have another script that he wrote, and I really hope to shoot that soon. He's just very multi-talented in front of the camera, whether he's directing, acting, or writing. He
All
has
right.
many talents.
So speaking of Gregory and actors, what is your general approach in working with actors?
It really changes so many times, because you learn. I've learned to be like super transparent, to make sure now, like I really make sure actors know my work before even approaching them, because the reality is I can admire their work all day, but if they don't know what my approach is or my methods, then we might have some misunderstandings. And I have had conflicts with actors on set, so I've really strive very hard to make sure that we are all on the same page. I love making sure they are aware that I love open dialogue about their thoughts of the
Mm.
character, because it's a collaboration. It's never what I say goes. I mean, what I say at the end of the day goes, but I want them to feel like they have a voice into their character as well. And you'll be surprised that what the great ideals that actors bring to the table, and realize if they feel that they can be open and transparent and honest with you, and you can be open, honest, and transparent with them, you can really make some amazing work.
Yeah. Excuse me 1 second. All right. So let's go back. Let's talk about the business side of things a little bit. So with your last couple of films, like how are you distributing? Like how's it going?
Broken Innocence is doing really well. You know, we are able to pay back our investors on the very first quarter of Broken Innocence, and
I thought
like,
it might.
yeah, you told me that, and I was just like, Jason, don't jinx it.
Yeah, that's true. Because
But
whenever you do think something is going to earn, it almost never does, and vice versa.
yeah, like
But yeah.
because I didn't know what to expect. Like in Payday and Broken Innocence are easily my top two performing content, and it's crazy because Payday has been earning for 8 years, and it's really hard to believe it's still doing pretty decent. And but Broken Innocence, it I didn't realize, because I've always watched your videos, and it can, like, if you are easily rattled, it can be very discouraging to move forward when you're like, hey, don't you got to be realistic on the earnings, because it sometimes it goes, and you
Yeah.
always really kind of kept me at a very realistic, and it helps me talk to investors better when I can give them a very complex, honest answer versus, oh, I'm going to give you the moon and stars and the rainbows,
Right.
and
Yeah.
like, I love how you beat that out of me. Like, and right now, but we were very surprised when I showed them the report for Broken Innocence, and we're like, wow, this
Yeah.
is insane.
That's a
So
good feeling.
yeah, it is. It's very motivating, and now I'm trying to do 2 projects in a year, and that's going to be a challenge because it's very challenging to do 1 project in a year.
Yeah. So if you do tune your, like, so you just did Desperate, you just did a crowdfunder for that. So when does that shoot?
We're gonna shoot late summer, or well, we got slated September 22nd through October 1st, but I'm going to probably bump it up a little earlier so I can start my next project and shoot first quarter of 2026, and then I'm going to shoot a movie late 2026.
Right. And so will the next one be a crowdfunder as well?
Yes.
And then, so when would you do that crowdfunder?
Me and Abel haven't really came up with a date as of yet. Abel's a one thing I like about Abel is he's like a one at a time person.
Oh, totally.
No, he totally ground.
Yeah.
Now my wife does the same thing because
I mean, like ballparky though.
like
It would be
summer.
like
Yeah,
late summer.
yeah, late summer. Yeah,
Okay. All right. Dang, yeah, 2 years. That makes sense. I mean, it's
yeah,
kind of following, I guess, kind of what the malls used to do. Like they would do
dude. Yeah,
3 or 4 a year.
yeah, they do 4 year. I would never do nothing that is. I
Yeah.
don't know how to do it. At
Yeah.
4 years insane.
Yeah.
But
I can't even. The
I do
two it sounds a
think
lot.
I do think 2 quality campaigns. And I was thinking
With a
like
good
one would be
six months,
yeah,
at least 6 months
yes.
between them.
Yes,
Yeah.
because what I was doing that like last year and the year before, Broken Innocence, we did our first campaign February 24th, and we shot June. So it can be done, and
Oh yeah. Definitely.
so I was just thinking, because I have so many ideas. I have an idea that I finally got the concept, and I pitched it to Charlie, which him and Gregory Blair are like my 2 favorite people I collaborate with on Story Complex. Like, we really collaborate well, and it's like a political thriller.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I finally found an actress that is a double black belt taekwondo,
All right.
and so think of Kill Bill, and then it's going to be very fun.
That's
I
cool.
can't wait to get that out there. But my next film after The Desperate that I'm going to be launching and give more info is going to be a post-apocalyptic film.
Oh, cool. All right. That's great, man.
Yeah,
Um,
you inspired me with Craven and the Hard Place.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So back to the business stuff, we'll talk a little bit about streaming distribution. How do you feel about streaming distribution? Do you think it's been overall a net positive or negative for indie
Um,
filmmaking?
I wouldn't say a positive or negative. It's just different.
Hmm.
In filmmaking, you don't really have time to feel about a certain thing because how you feel, whether you like it or not, is happening. And if you want to survive in business, as you say, you have to adapt. Would I love to go back to the 90s where DVDs and VHS was you made a lot more, like you can pre-sell. And I heard stories about that. The advantage of it is about that you can get away with shooting a movie that might not do well in theaters, but the reality is now I feel we have an advantage that a lot of people complain about, and that's social media. I have a way to get my movie out, and I can spend a lot less on marketing opposed to being Quentin Tarantino or Kevin Smith, and you go to his film festival and you hope to get discovered, and you have to put a lot more money into marketing for people to even know who you are, because back then there was no internet, so people didn't really know how the hell you were unless you had a hit. uh, so I feel like it's pros and cons in everything. People always act like the 90s of filmmaking was just everybody thriving. That's not the case.
Yeah. So, what is advice do you have for filmmakers that are trying to get a toehold today?
I'm going to tell people the same advice you told me when I was in a point where, because in 2021, I really thought I was done. I was 2 years in limbo and watching you and other filmmakers carry on and making it look cool. And I was bitter at one point, but what I would tell people is keep going and focus on a movie you feel that you can tell. And if you can't make that movie that you really, really want to make that requires this amount of money, maybe make smaller films to show people what you can do. And you will be surprised when people see that you have potential, people will come.
That's great, man. Is there anything else I didn't cover that you wanted to bring up or something you wanted to talk about?
Well, my campaign is still going for the desperate. We are in demand, and we definitely have raised a great amount of money, but we can still raise more money, and we can still, since we're shooting an action film, there's a lot of things that we can do with more money that really gives that action level quality. So if you go to my page, Chase Dudley or The Desperate, we post a lot about the campaign, and you'll be surprised what a few dollars can do. And I want to thank you for having me on your show. It's always a pleasure.
Awesome, man. Thank you for coming.
No problem.